Yeah. All right. Cheers, Sam. Okay. Now we'll move swiftly on to Uwa and his presentation on, well, I sort of call it deal analysis, Uwa, but I know you've got a much sexier name for that. So I'll hand over to you, Uwa.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so I don't have a much sexier name for the app than what you've used, so we'll stick with what you've said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me bring my slides up. Have you given me the power to share?
Yep, you should be able to, yeah.
Okay.
So Sam has released the sharing, his screen sharing, so you should be okay, Uwa.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, that's just I can just the vehicle mindset. Just
The vehicle mindset. Yes. Thank you so much. All right. So let's get started. I've got an hour, I think.
You have, and also if you could just let people know, do you want questions as you go through, or do you want to save them to the end? That'd be really good to know.
Just so that I'm not talking for an hour, I would like questions as I go through. Anything, just feel free to come off mute and ask, and or pop a question in the chat, and hopefully I would see it. Okay, so thank you, Chris. Thank you, Lisa, for this opportunity. It's always great to be on these meetings, but to be presenting is really a privilege, and I really do appreciate it. And thank you everyone for showing up. You could have read the synopsis and thought, what are we coming here for? But trust me, this is going to be worth your while. So I'm going to be talking tonight about the vehicle mindset. And towards the end, I'll pose a question and find out from everyone if you've been listening and if you can tell me what the vehicle is. My name is Uwa, and I'm a property investor. I've been investing for a few years. And actually, before I go into myself, let's talk about what the agenda is for tonight. So that's not my cat, but I do like that picture. So today we're going to talk about data. We're going to talk about valuation methods and how valuers arrive at their figures. We're going to talk about goals, your goals as investors. Go through a few strategies, then I'll demo this tool that I use for my appraisal and some other people use for their appraisals now. And I'll drop some hints as to how I think one can be competitive in this market and remain profitable. So every presentation tends to have a brag slide, and this is my brag slide. I've been in IT for 20 years. I'm still in IT. I run a consultancy, got a few clients, and over the last few months, we've had a few more clients come on board. It's been really busy, and I'm grateful for that. Been in property since 2004. I've been purchasing property on and off. In terms of my education, my first degree was in computer engineering. My master's degree is in property development and planning, and that's where I learned a lot of the more commercial aspect of investing in property that I use today. In terms of my experience, I started buying properties in 2004, and then I got quite bored of buy to let. Once you figured it out, you realize there's nothing amazing about it. And then I moved into HMOs in 2005, 2006. The HMOs didn't go too well. Learned a lot of lessons from that. So I switched the properties back to buy to let. Then my architect friend and I, we built a house. And then we bought a detached house, convert to flats, and then the recession came along. And fortunately, we still sold for nominal profit, but there were some lessons from that. And then I stopped doing property actively for a few years whilst I ran a quick sale franchise in the Sutton and Croydon and Selhurst area. And during that period, purchased a few through the recession in South London. So a lot of the portfolios in South London. And more recently, I've gone into serviced accommodation. If there's time towards the end, I can talk more about that. But that's where I am now, doing developments and conversions. My passion, I've discovered over the last few years, is really to create things and see things born. Development for me is a similar sort of thing. You know, come up with the solution, a design with an architect, we build it, it appears, and move on to the next thing. Likewise, with my IT. In my experience, I've worked with in telecoms, I've worked in normal IT, I've worked in finance, I've worked in the public sector. And in all of those places, I've implemented solutions where we monitor things automatically. We've done automations, we've done Internet of Things. So that's where sensors monitor things and send information to a central hub, and then we interpret that data. So my passion is really about making things quicker, the human spirit, in the sense that, you know, if you do some like bite alerts or you're doing appraisals and it takes so long to do something and it's repetitive, I think the human spirit is there to create, and anything we can do to move people away from the mundane to the creative, I think it gets a tick from me. So that's been my passion. And when I see problems, I try to find a way to use IT to solve them. So let's start with data. Now, this picture, I brought this picture up last month, and it probably wasn't this big, and probably people didn't work out what it was at the time. But if you look at the picture, okay, I'm not going to pose questions now because it might take time, but this is a picture of a snake. The fact that it has a smiley face doesn't stop it from being a snake. It's still a snake. And the fact that you see a smiley face, you wouldn't let your child or a loved one go close to it. You still run away from it. And why this is important is most people have never actually seen a snake this close up and never touched it. Yet we understand that this is dangerous. That all comes from data. So that's data that you've stored internally from, you know, films or videos you've seen, watching people, snake charmers, play with these things and seeing how these animals harm rodents and stuff. You've internalized that data, and you've protected yourself based on that information. And that's the same way with property. You know, the fact that a saucer presents you a property and the numbers look great doesn't mean that it's not a snake. You have to understand how to do the numbers, how to apply knowledge. And in terms of data, all of this will make sense when we look at the product or the solution that I use. Artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is really training machines to act like human beings, and that's based on data. So what we program in a machine is, well, when you see a light is red, it means there's danger. The machine understands that, and that data is built in. Machine learning is when we train machines to learn from patterns. So they experience it, they go through an experience, they store it in their database. I guess I've got some echo. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Someone was mic was open. I just switched it out.
Okay. So the next thing is experience. Some people get upset when I say this, but experience really is a collection of years of data. I'm still getting the feedback. Did someone unmute themselves?
Yes, I think you're fine now. Sorry about that.
Yes, yeah. So what I'll say is experience is really a collection of data. When you're a new investor or a young person tries to come into a property market, they get told you have to do this for 10 years, do that for 5 years, you have to travel around the country. Really, you don't have to. You just need access to data. You need access to the experience. And those of us who've been around for a long time, for us, is just data points. We now know where not to invest. We now know what figures to use, what figures not to use. Now, if we take that information and put that in a computer, there's no reason why a computer cannot do that for us. And there's no reason why a young investor cannot just take that information and run with it quickly and get to the destination a lot quicker. Now, the impact of this is, in a few years' time, if we don't adjust how we invest, how we appraise properties, how we find deals, we'll get left behind. Because people who understand how data works would just shoot ahead. And it's easy to see with social media and how the youngsters and making loads and loads of revenue and income through social media. And some people are still not, still think, you know, it's the government trying to spy on us. They may well be trying to spy on you, but the data that's in there is is very, very useful, and everything is data. Data will never run out. Okay, so let's talk about valuations. Most valuers, or in fact, all valuers and all valuation is based on comparables. And comparable evidence is essentially, I'm trying to buy a 3-bed semi-detached house. The valuer goes out within the area. He has to find other properties of a similar setup, a similar standing, and what those properties sold for. That's comparable evidence. So if a 3-bed house sold in Liverpool for £60,000, you cannot use that as an adequate comparison to a 3-bed house in St. Albans. So you would have to compare it to something within St. Albans. The other method they use is residual valuation. And residual valuation is essentially in property development, you start with the GDV, i.e. that's how much you're going to sell the finished product for. You deduct your profit. Yes, you deduct your profit first. Then you deduct different costs. And what you end up at the bottom, which is the residue, is what you offer for the property. You don't start with your offer and then build up everything else. You start from the end and deduct everything else. And deducting everything else starts with your profit. You specify what your profit is. And that's what our tool does, is it uses, it's a tool based on the investor and how the investor, we believe the investor should behave, and my learnings from experience and from uni. The third one that I mentioned here is the investment valuation. Investment valuation is essentially based on the income a commercial property is yielding, or in more recent times, the income a HMO is producing. Generally, this feeds into the yield of the property, the gross yield. And how it's worked out is if you're earning, let's say the income from a property or commercial retail shop is £10,000 a year, and the purchase price or the sale price is 100,000, your yield on that property is 10%. And how it's worked out is 10,000 divided by 100,000 times 100%, which gives you 10%. So a valuer would take this, again, comparables in terms of the yield. They'll take the income, they'll look at comparable evidence of what investors, non-distressed investors would like to achieve from that type of property, and then work backwards to work out what your freehold interest in that property is. And freehold interest is a terminology they'll use, which essentially means the sale price. And that's how these things are worked out. It's not rocket science once you understand how these figures are put together. So when a valuer says, gives you a 12 times multiple somewhere in London, and then in Burnley, they give you 8 times, it's really based on the risk and the yields that they reckon investors would be happy with in those areas. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I have got a question. So in terms of, say, a RICS sort of red book valuation, would you include that in like the comparables? Because that's something they would use.
Exactly that, yes. So a RICS valuer has to produce comparables. They cannot just create it. If it's a property that, I mean, there are certain exceptions in properties that are unusual, like hospitals or nuclear plants or those sorts of properties. The valuation is slightly different. There is still a methodology within the RICS Red Book that they have to follow, but everything else, most of the things that we would go for on this call, there would have to be evidence. And if there's nothing else in the area, at the very bottom would be the rebuild cost. At the very least, you'd have an idea as to how much it will cost to build a property, and they can work off of that. But that'll be just minuscule, maybe 5%, if that. So yeah, for RICS, they all use comparables, and they use residual valuation for developments and investment strategy for commercial properties and stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Has anybody else got any questions? I must admit, your slides are good. They're above what I would normally do. So you're doing well. You're showing me up, actually, particularly with the snake. That's embarrassed me there, but it's very good.
Thanks. I needed that confidence boost. Okay, so as an investor, if you're an investor, which everyone on this call is, whether you have properties or not, you are an investor. The mindset has to be right. You have to define or you should be defining your goals. What type of investments are you going to go for? Do I want cash flow? Do I want yields? Do I want returns on investments? What is the best strategy? How do I go ahead? You'd have that in your at the back of your mind. And when you find opportunities or you find deals, you try and match them to the goals you've set. And you'd also need to understand some of the different strategies that exist. There are many strategies, and there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of places you can get information from. But these things are very important as you move forward in your investment game. So these are some of the most common strategies you'd find out there. So there's buy to let, there's new build, there's HMO, there's conversions, sales accommodation, the flips. Now, people tend to say you have to start with buy to let or buy your own place, then do buy to let, and then do HMO, then do new build, and do conversion. I would argue that if you've got the right data, there's no reason why you cannot start with new build with the right data and the right team. So it's all data, and finding the right team is based on data. So who's a good solicitor, who's a good broker, what are the conversion rates, who's a good tax specialist, capital allowances, all those things. That's all from data. So that's part of the research you do, and don't let anyone's conclusions limit what you're prepared to do. So how do you currently appraise? I think typically people would have spreadsheets. So this is what spreadsheets will look like. You've got one person sat at a desk putting things through that spreadsheet. I've been on calls where people have said the value of their spreadsheets is £1,400. That's £1,400 for a spreadsheet. Someone would say it's £40 and you get it free if you pay for their course and stuff like that. It's all well and good, and I can understand why they would sell it. But the fact is, this information is out there, the information is available. And if you find the right sources, you can get a lot of that information for very, very cheap. Ask questions in chat groups, the right chat groups, like St. Alban's WhatsApp group, very, very good. Loads of people on there with experience, and I'm yet to see any question asked on there that somebody has not been through or provided information on. But the issue with spreadsheets is it becomes cumbersome. And this is one of the reasons this product we're going to talk about, which is valapp.io, came about. Essentially, over the years, we appraised properties. And when I was working full time and having to go into London a lot, my wife and I divvied up the deal stacking roles. My wife used to be a mortgage broker, so she understands the numbers. So how it would work is I would do searches online. I'll find properties, and then I'll email the links to my wife, and she would use a spreadsheet that I got through my course days, and she would appraise those properties and let me know if the numbers stack, and then we'll move on to the next phase. And over the years, we've been appraising, and we've appraised hundreds. And for me, sometimes I'll go online after work and I'll spend 4 hours just searching for deals straight. And if you think that's 4 hours is nothing on most days, because what I'll do is I'll go to Rightmove, go to Zoopla, go to Property Link, and sometimes go on the market. And each page is at least 10 properties or sometimes 25 properties times 40 tabs. That's it. You just keep looking. I'd sent so many properties to her, and she almost went on strike. She said, well, all these spreadsheets, they're just too many. I can't carry on doing this. Find me a solution. So as a good husband, I came up with an automated way of doing the appraisals. So we created version 1 of valapp.io, and it was within it's within a different property business that we run, and that was good. So I've got this point here: 99 problems, but spreadsheets ain't one of my problems. So now you're not going to see this picture on the bottom left anywhere on my system. It's all in Valapp, and it's all managed centrally. So the other issue with spreadsheets is because it's so cumbersome, you'd find that you'd have biases. If you want to do a buy-to-let appraisal, you'd need a buy-to-let spreadsheet. If you want to do a new build, you need a new build spreadsheet. Then you want a service accommodation spreadsheet, then a conversion spreadsheet. And it becomes really problematic if you want to appraise one property for different strategies. And you'd find that you'd gravitate towards one because it's the easiest to use. The other thing is the different permutations. So if you're appraising for different strategies, each property, and you're doing 400 properties and you're doing 5 different strategies, that's the number just grows, and it's very difficult to go through all of that as a human.
Sorry, one of the things I have problems with spreadsheets is just the fact that the formulas, etc., need to change and update so regularly, because so the tax regime changes, or stamp duty changes, interest rates change, loan to values change. I find I don't always have, so you can have all these spreadsheets, but then it's also having the confidence that it's actually going to produce a number that's correct. That's a real concern I have, actually.
Yes, that's very true. So data being stale is a common one, and is a spreadsheet you're stuck with, and you're stuck with version 1 if you didn't create the spreadsheet yourself. And you'd find that each time is, I need to add this cost, or that's different, or this rate is different. And that's a problem with static, anything static these days. And everyone's moving away from stuff that's static. You need to be dynamic. As investors, we need to be nimble, and that's the only way to move ahead. I'm sure you've heard of people who use online means to find opportunities, social media. These people are hitting their customers right at their point of desire. You go online, you search, estate agent in my area. Well, Google knows you're trying to sell or you're trying to rent. So anyone who's plugged into that can very quickly get a message to you saying, well, if you're interested in renting, if you're interested in selling, contact me, let's appraise your property. And all of this can be done really, really quickly with a spreadsheet, and without being nimble, you'd be left behind. So, there are multiple spreadsheets were good in their day. I think as investors, we need to be looking at what's next. And we need to be thinking about legacy. We need to be thinking about the next thing. And just being ahead of the curve. And then with the other thing as well with spreadsheets and other things is, as you alluded to, Chris, is just having the confidence that what you're looking at is actually correct, that the person who produced it had good intentions and hasn't got anything in the background that any macros running, and that can go for anything really. But if you have something that's centralized that everyone can see and share and comment on and contribute to, it's less likely that social accountability would let things slip. And if you're using a centralized system, a bit like what Valap is, we've had a lot of feedback from our users, and that's constantly improving the system. Initially, the system was just for my wife and I to carry on appraising, but we discovered over time that, well, we're putting in tenders for properties and we're getting completely outbid. Now, there could be 2 reasons for that. One could be that the strategy we've applied to that property isn't the same strategy that a person who's offered more would apply to the property. For instance, if we put in a tender for a former post office, and we were bidding against a housing association. Now, they're not interested in refinancing and getting all their money out, whereas we are. So they can go a lot higher. But we're also finding that there were a lot of investors who just didn't understand what putting in an offer meant. They'll go off, they'll find a GDV by speaking to agents in the area, then they'll get a builder will give them a figure, then they'll just do GDV less builder's cost, whatever's left is my profit, and I'm happy with that. But what they don't factor in is that after you've done a development, there's a financing during the period of the development, There's a financing whilst you're trying to get your bridging or your development finance. There's a disposal cost, and disposal costs are not cheap. And you've got the legal fees. You've got you might have other professionals that you need to employ to get to your development stage. All of these costs need to be factored in, not just the builder's cost. And sometimes that's the difference between making a profit and making a loss. Then if you're thinking of retaining the development at the end, how do you know what figure to use to make sure that when you refinance, the bank gives you everything you need to clear the previous amount and still leave you with a deposit or some equity in the property, and you not having to subsidize the mortgage at the end? So all of these things are built in, and that's why in the previous slide I said with the residual, the first thing you deduct is your profit. And generally, people who are savvy understand that if I'm going to refinance this property at the end, and most lenders want a 25% deposit, you have to have at least a 25% developer's profit before everything else gets deducted. And then whatever is at the end is what you give to the is what you offer. And it means that you won't be able to purchase a lot of properties, but that's where this insecurity thing is. The fact that people are buying properties doesn't mean they're making money, or the fact that people are doing developments doesn't mean that people are making money. I was on a call yesterday where some lady was saying that she's starting to see distressed properties. Now, why is that happening so early, even though we're hearing that furlough, the extension of furlough and the stamp duty holiday is leading to huge demand? Why is that happening? It all boils down to the figures that people use. Some people, I think was it last month's meeting on here, the presenter was saying that some people factor in the growth in value in their offer amounts, and that's just ridiculous. You don't know what's going to happen in a few months' time, so you have to use what's current, and that's where your appraisals have to be data driven. And data comes from different sources that exist, and a lot of these sources are free. So that's one of the things that a dynamic system would help you resolve. It also keeps you abreast of of latest trends in terms of stamp duty is now zero, so we reduce stamp duty to zero, base rates and all of those things. Those can be done centrally, and you can do them yourself with our tool. Then if you're one of the lucky people who's done loads and loads of courses, £2,000 at a pop, and you pay 10 grand, 15 grand, it's very difficult to maintain that knowledge across the different courses. And you find a lot of people, when they get around to doing HMOs, because they've done the whole degree at the beginning, when they come around to do HMOs, they've forgotten what numbers to use. They've forgotten how to appraise a HMO. Then they have to do a refresher course, which is expensive. And the other benefits as well to having a centralized system is the community is essentially the eyes and ears, and we all help each other, and everyone's input helps everybody else. So we all make money together, because there is a lot to be made. You just have to be able to search quickly and get to the opportunities quickly as well. Any questions? Okay, so it's demo time. Let's have a look at Valap. And this is going to be a live demo. I haven't saved anything previously, so
I'm looking forward to this, because I know it is quite sexy. You mentioned about I think the reference to last month was in a particularly hot market in say in London. People were including a growth during the sales process, really. But that it has to be a pretty hot market to do that.
Yeah, I think it's also foolhardy to do that, because we just don't know when the turn will come. February, you could have said, well, the London market is going to grow, and then something happens, and you have to stay indoors. That's some would say it's experience. Some would say there's a graph, there's a trend, there's all of that stuff. But it's generally safer to go with evidence. And as I mentioned in one of the previous slides, valuers will use evidence. You have to be able to defend any figure you put on your development appraisal, and that will go with current evidence. The growth does happen, but it should be a bonus rather than what makes your deal stack.
I agree. I'd just say that in the reverse, in a falling market, you might want to factor in falling prices. But I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing your demo, and I feel I'm distracting you.
You are not distracting me. You're confirming that some people are listening, so that's good. So let's go to ValApp. So ValApp is the tool. We call it ValApp, valuation app. For now, it's still web application. And I'm going to go to here. Let me move this out of the way. It's not distract me. Okay, so the URL to this is, let's cross that out. Okay, is valapp.io. Come here, let me just log out so you see what you see. So when you come here, there's a video on there that just explains what the application does.
Sorry, but I still can see demo and ValApp. So the screen hasn't changed. I don't know if you're just sharing a single screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it must be. Okay, let me change that. Sorry. Let me get
yeah, just
and just share. Let me share the desktop.
Well, just be careful.
It's a risk.
It is risky. Yeah. I know that to my cost.
So can you see ValApp?
I can, yes, thank you.
Yes. So it's worth mentioning that one of the reasons we brought this out for or made it a product for other people to experience is really to help people who aren't quite sure about the numbers or how to do the numbers or what costs to factor in or things to deduct, things to add and stuff like that. And so that we can sort of change the behavior. Now, ValApp is not the only product that does this, but it's just giving you an idea as to products that do exist. So you're able to sign up free and you get 5 properties to appraise. And within each property, you can appraise as many strategies and as many times as you want. And that number there is really to keep down our costs because each appraiser does cost us something. And it gives you the experience. And hopefully, once you've experienced it and you get used to it, you keep coming back for more. So let's start free trial. We'll go in there. Again, start appraisal. So on here, you land on this dashboard, and this dashboard just gives you a summary of things that you've appraised. And it's quite neat for the investor. It tells you how many properties you've appraised and how many appraisals, and each appraisal is a stack, is different strategies and multiple types of strategies. And then here it gives you a brief idea as to the asking price versus the maximum offer. As you can see, loads of these things, the offers generally lower than asking price, and that's for a reason because it's vendors tend to be on one end and investors tend to be at the other end. So, so this is just a dashboard, and then to do an appraisal, generally what I'll do is I'll come in here, go to Rightmove. Here's a search I had on open earlier, so I'll search for somewhere in Hertfordshire. 5 miles. I put an upper limit of 1,000 of a million, so 100,000, just to make sure that the number of properties is not too huge. Another tip is, does this have it? So here you can add keywords. Some like modernization. So you want something that needs modernization or something that's just gone had modernization to it. So it's giving me all the £1 million properties. You can also sort by lowest priced. Zoopla is quite interested actually, because Zoopla gives you the option to sort by the most reduced, and that's really what you're after. The most reduced. Let's see if I can show you that. And I was hoping this would be quick, but let's see. Share. Sort by sort by most reduced. You would think that would generally bring a lot of properties into the category of something that would work. Let's see, 130,000, sure. I'll go for houses. Actually, let me do sure. Number of bedrooms, yeah, so at least one. Distance from area, do 3 miles. So I'm doing most reduced. I don't want new homes. I don't want shared ownership. I don't want retirement homes. And then I'll do my search. Okay, so that's brought up all of these properties. So this is the most reduced. So this one's reduced by 37%. So you'd hope that by reducing it by 37%, it should suddenly work. This one's reduced by 34%. Can you see the percentages? Yeah, what I'm referring to.
Yeah, we can see those in red. Thanks. So
yes, in red. So this is generally how I'll be scrolling through, just looking for something that will stand out. As a flat, I don't want flats. I probably want houses, and all would make sense in a bit.
So what you're doing now is trying to find an interesting property to put into VALAP. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Exactly that. So just showing you that. So if I pick this one, no, that one doesn't look too good. Let's go on right move. See. So unfortunately, it's not a science at this stage, but we are getting there. We're making some progress. Let's see. Okay, let's go to page 8, just to make this quicker. Okay, so let's take this one, end terrace house, 3-bed. I'll grab the link, and then I go into VALAP. I put the link in here. Then I say submit, and it pulls the information from Rightmove. Property type is a house. LU4, so Luton. Now here, the next thing to do is to submit for appraisal and ask you to confirm. Submit for appraisal, and these are the strategies you can appraise against. If we picked sales accommodation, for instance, we could say my SA. Next, nightly rate. If you know what the nightly rate is, just for £100 a night. 70% occupancy. Now, all of these numbers are adjustable. If you feel you have a high occupancy or low occupancy, you can put that in. Then just click go. Hopefully, to find the information we need. Okay, so it's come back and it's given me some headline numbers. Now, it gives you numbers right to a very, very long decimals, and really the reason I left that there is I wanted the rounding to be limited, or the changes due to rounding numbers to be limited. Now the important bits for you as the investor are what yield you're going to get, the 70% occupancy rate, the profit you're likely to make. In here is the income section. It's your £100 per night, nightly, and it sleeps 2 is 1, number of bedrooms is 1. We can change that. All of this is flexible. Then increase the screen real estate. And then in terms of costs, now remember the key thing I was saying is your costs. You need to make sure you factor in all your costs before you decide if you're going to go for this property. Now, the cost for service accommodation, typical cost, would be your buildings insurance, your contents insurance, your monthly rent. And we've got all the different costs laid in different tabs. You don't have any capital costs because there's an SA, there are marketing costs, listing costs. So listing costs for like Airbnb and booking.com, operating costs. So these are the costs that you incur when you're running an SA. And I'm sure Chris and Lisa would be able to concur or tell me otherwise. But your gas, your electric, your broadband, your council tax, so all of these costs, they're pre-filled. So if there's anything on there that you don't think you need, you can always delete it, and it would adjust these numbers up here. Okay, it would adjust your profit. You can adjust the occupancy. You've got your servicing costs. So these will be cleaning, linen, laundry, deliveries, toiletries, and any taxes or capital allowances, or any of those things. You can add them here. The other options you've got for this same property would be, if you wanted to do a buy-to-let on it, you could do my BTL, next number of bedrooms, 3, and go. So what this is going to do is it will go off to Zoopla, Rightmove, and it will find the average prices for rental for a 3-bed in the area. So here in this one is worked out that your equity that you'd be leaving in will be £20,000. And that's because it's factored in all your capital costs. So your deposits, your stamp duty, your legal. So for instance, now that stamp duty is no longer necessary, you can delete that. So stamp duty is gone. Your professional fees, your contingency, any refurb costs. So we put in by default 5% refurb. So we believe it will cost you at least 5% of your purchase price to bring the property up to standard. If that's not needed, you can cross that out. You've got operating costs whilst you're doing the refurb. Your handyman, your mortgage costs, your voids, any maintenance, any admin and other costs, you can add them here. So really this serves as a pointer and as a check. And it's also worked out what your cash flow is likely to be. And all of this is done automatically based on data that currently exists. It's not stuff we've made up. It's not stuff that we've created. There are portals. Zoopla is one. Rightmove is one, where we get this information from. And when the government eventually opens up the deposit protection schemes data, we'll be able to pull information from there as well. So that's a taster for what you can do. For this same property as well, you can do a new build. Needless to say, anything you appraise, it stacks them here. And in a future version, it will be color coded, and so that you see what's green and what isn't green based on your criteria. So if you decide to do a new build on this property, you could do my new build, and here, this is really neat. If you know the size of your property or size of this property, let's assume it's a 3-bed and it's maybe 300 is large, but let's say 185 square meters. You've got this button here that appears, which is create my scheme. And with this create my scheme, if you click on it, it goes off and it builds a construction for you based on the size of the property. And what it does is it creates, it divides up the space into flats after deducting communal space, and then it works out your profit or your developer's profit based on that. So these are the options you've got. It's come up with 3 different options. You can either have 2 units or 3 units from 185. And I'd imagine the 3 units would be 3 1-beds. So if we select this one, straight away, it tells you that you've been making a loss of £10,000. You may still be pleased with that. And then once you've selected one of those, you can input all of this information yourself. But if you select one of these, all these tabs are pre-filled for you. So duration, that's based on the number of units. Any seal is empty, and it's for you to put in your seal. Your build cost, this is the build cost for the area, right? So this is based on valuers' build costs for that particular area. So there's a portal where surveyors put in different build costs for different types of properties, and that's where we get this information from. Your finance, 5.85%, and your developer's profit of 30%. So that then creates this screen where you have your properties. So if you remember, I clicked 3 units, so it said it's divvied up the space, and it said that 2 of the flats would be 52 square meters and 1 would be 53 square meters. So it's maximizing the space for you. And then at the bottom here, it gives you a summary of everything. All your costs in the middle, sale prices, the financing, and it gives you a value here, which is the amount available for site purchase. But in addition to site purchase, remember when you purchase a site, you have that period when you're applying for planning, when you have to hang on to that property until you get the planning and until you sell. There's also that financing cost, which you can easily forget. That's in here on the bottom right-hand corner. The other thing you could do from here is if you're not familiar with the National Space Standards, you can click this button here, and this is the National Space Standards. And fortunately, the government has insisted that we now use this National Space Standards for property. So this is it here, 1 bed, 39 square meters minimum, and then 1 bed, 2 person, and it's all listed here. You can also, there are other things. I'll just show you this one, and then we'll move to show you what's coming next. And this is prices in the area. So this first line is sold prices in the area for everything. But the flats are split by 52.4 square meters and 53.4 square meters. So you can click sold prices, and that's pre-filled this bottom row with the prices. And that's based on price per square foot in the area multiplied by the size of your apartment. You can get sale prices as well. And it's saying that sale prices roughly are higher than the sold prices. So this feeds into your question, Chris, about how you factor in the falls in the market. The way I factor in the falls in the market is I'll look at the current prices and look at sold prices. If the sold prices are higher, I'll use sale price. If sale price is higher, I'll use sold price, because that indicates to you the trends in the market. So that's what I use as a hedge. So you can select any of these and put it in here, and it will calculate everything and adjust all the numbers for you. Now, this is something that's quite interesting that's coming soon. So here with the Mega Stack, we've got a tab here where it checks the EPC for the property on properties in the area if it finds one. Currently, there's no EPC, and the purpose for that really is to get the sizes of the property from the EPC, because as you know, most times properties are listed without the sizes, but EPC will give you an idea as to what the size of the property is. And once you've got that, you can just click the row, and it will calculate what would work for you. So in terms of number of bedrooms, so because we don't have the EPC, we'll put the number of bedrooms ourselves, and we click the project duration. Let's say we say 6 months, and then we say get appraisals. Now this is the Megastack page, and the Megastack page goes off, and okay, I didn't give it floor area. All right, sorry, floor area. Let's say we say 300 square meters. So go off. Now, what this page has done is it's gone off and it's done all the appraisals for you in one go. And it's color coded the responses. So generally, if something would work, it would be green. But here we've got stuff in yellow. And for us, that's an indication that, okay, it's the offer amount isn't higher than the asking price, but it's within 20% of the asking price, which means that we have something to go with to the agent. Agent, I know your asking price is 250, but our offer price is coming in at 242, which is for the flip. That's this one here, 242. Would the vendor be interested? You might say yeah, you might say no. Okay, and then from here you can just click one of these buttons, whichever one you're interested in, and it brings you to this page with everything pre-populated for you and how it's worked out the numbers. Okay. So that's the Mega Stack.
Well, is it worth just pausing there a second, because you've been through an awful lot of detail. It's absolutely fantastic. I was doing my head in actually. I just wonder whether anyone has any questions at this point, because you've been through quite a lot of detail, and it's super powerful. I just thought I'd just open it up. Hold on.
Uwa, yeah, I've got a quick one.
Yes.
Thank you, very valuable. A lot of data, a lot to take in. Question really is, how much of this information, I guess, is like an application interface into other tools, or is it, how much of it is administered by an individual? I guess, because obviously a lot of this data changes. Obviously some of it's integrations. Is it all integrations, or is it a combination of?
It's a combination. So no humans are involved in this. So my wife is in the background doing the calculations quickly. So just teasing. But it's generally interfaces to different sources. So interfaces to land registry, interfaces to Rightmove, interfaces to Zoopla and other government websites to pull this information for that postcode. And that's how we're able to produce this information pretty quickly. There is a lot of data involved, and this is really the point I'm making, that to be able to appraise a property correctly, you need to be appraising all these data points. And after you've appraised all those data points, only then should you make an offer. Now, there are many data points, and because we're humans, and we've got biases and we don't have time, you won't be able to do everything. And this is where we deviate from, or we're better than a spreadsheet, that as these prices change every day, these numbers would change every day, but they'll be correct as at the day you've done the appraisal. And within here, we've got, okay, it's not on the Megastack, but on another page. So the other advantage of this page, and we've found from our use, is that if I found a property and it looks like an end terrace house and it looks small, when I plug it into this Megastack, it would appraise HMO, appraise it for conversion, appraise it for new build, flip, buy to let, and service accommodation. Suddenly, it's opened my eyes to other options for that same property. And that is the key thing with, if you're I understand that the view that some people have, that you should be a specialist in one thing and just do that one thing. But again, that boils down to data, because if you're a specialist in one thing, you've had many years of experience and many years of data. If you have a tool that has that data embedded, then you can venture into other strategies. You can try other strategies. Or even if you're not comfortable trying other strategies, you can sell the deal on to other people, and you've had everything pre-appraised with actual numbers that they can go off and verify themselves. So that's how I find it's really powerful, rather than all the different strategies separately. From our experience, we've noticed that a lot of people, they find it's very useful, but not a lot of people have the time to do the searching themselves. And we find that people come sporadically, they use it for a week and then they disappear, then they come back and they use it and then they disappear. And it can be time consuming. You have to really want to do it, to do the searches, because 90%, 95%, 99% of everything you find will not work. And that means that if you appraise 200 properties, 190 of those would not work. The 10 that do work, you're bidding with many other people. If you decide to find what they call your gold mine area, it takes time, it takes data. You don't have to keep traveling up to Burnley to find out if your HMO is going to work in Burnley. You can sit at your desk, pull these numbers, see what the trend is, see how things work before you take the trip. And especially now we're required to stay indoors, this type of tool is what you need to at least weed out the noise. And that's the key thing. Your time is key, your time is important. And you need tools like this to help you weed out the time. Now, the next stage of this product, I mean, this Megastack is currently available to me and the people internally. And anyone who's interested requests it specifically, and we open it up to them. As you can imagine, all of these appraisals happening at the same time, everything costs money. So it's not yet open to everyone, but it will be. The next stage we're trialing now, and we tried it at the weekend, and I was hoping to have it ready for today, but there's still some fine tuning to do. Is we've gotten the automated appraisal to the point where we can just put postcodes in, and it will go off and appraise everything that's on Zoopla for that postcode, and appraise anything we push in. So that then becomes a push, rather than us coming here and copying links from different places and pasting it in. We just put in the postcode and then it goes off, does it for us, and then brings back results. My first run of it was on Saturday, and it came back with 17 deals. And I thought, that's very interesting. But we still need to fine tune that whole process. And that would open up to everybody, especially people who have time time poor and who just want to be told or handheld. And you can learn with your own, with your own deal. But it's not ready for general release yet. We're still trialing it, and there's still so much more we can do and fine tune. And so that's it with the demo. If anyone needs any more information, please DM me, post a message in the WhatsApp chat. And if there are no other questions, I'll go back to the presentation and just finish that off. Any questions? Okay, I'll take silence as a good thing.
I have got some, but I'll let you get to the end first. Okay. It's really good stuff, really good stuff.
Okay, that's great, thank you. So let's get back to the slides. Okay. So that's the demo done. Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can see demo and
demo.
Top right. Yeah.
Okay, so we've done the demo. So this video really, I really wanted it to encourage people. This is an elephant, as you know. Look at what the elephant is doing to get to its food. It's going on its hind legs to pull food for itself. And we as investors, we should be doing stuff that's similar. Okay, the way we used to do things was you get into the estate agent's black book and you search places and you go travel up north, you travel down south, and you keep doing things manually and the mundane way. To stay competitive, we need to stretch ourselves. We need to try new things. And as you can see, this elephant's going on its hind legs. Other elephants will see it and start to copy it. And before you know it, this would be the normal way things happen. But this, you can imagine, is a first mover. He's getting to the food. He's remaining fed. And for us, we need to do the same with our investment journey. Try different tools. Use things that would help you get to your goal quickly. Your time is the most important thing. You can pay other people to do your appraisals for you, knowing full well that they're using a tool that has no biases. They're not likely to forget anything because the tool is doing everything for them. You can outsource this to VAs and they can do your appraisals for you, following the process that's defined by VALAP. So how to remain competitive? Coming on these calls, doing the research, networking, collaborating with others, getting advice from the right people, using tools. And if you remember the initial slide I showed where the way you're working with spreadsheet is really one person doing things. But now when you've got VALAP doing different strategies for you, it's all running at the same time. You don't need to wait. There's no reason to wait. So if you imagine that's a conveyor belt of different properties being appraised and they're all different strategies and they're all coming out, and you just sit there as the manager that you are, the CEO that you are, looking at the numbers, verifying that you're happy with what you're seeing, and potentially deals or opportunities that you'd have let go, you can pass on to someone who's interested in a strategy you're not necessarily interested in for a fee. So you become a sourcer. And that's what these tools let you do. So that's the last of my slides. Any questions? So Chris?
I think that was absolutely fantastic. I think as a piece of software and as a tool for an investor, which as I say everybody on the call is, I just think this is a sort of game changer. Really, I think it's really, really powerful. Well, my questions really were about so you have, it's really important to have the interfaces with sort of your data sources, and the new build one was sort of of most interest to me. It's because it's something I'm working on at the moment, and new build costs can vary quite a lot within an area. It also depends upon the level of finish you want, whether you want a sort of basic finish or you want really high end. So I assume you're sort of doing averages in those respects. Is that right?
Okay. Doing averages for build costs, yes, but let's go to new build. I think we did a new build earlier. If I open that up. So our build cost is based on the build cost for that particular area. Now, this figure and one of the later releases would show three different tiers, because with build cost, you have build cost for low quality accommodation, then you have the mid-tier accommodation, and you have the really luxury accommodation. So what we've presented here is the mid-tier, but I think I should open this up so that you can see the low quality and high quality finishes and pick that build cost. Now, if this is for LU 490W, now if you found a property in London, the build cost would be a lot higher. So that build cost is for different, it varies depending on the postcode. Just as a case in point, let me show you the scheme as well. Here. So this is a summary of your costs, and that's your total build cost. So this will change. If I pull up one more from my dashboard, okay.
But you say the source of this data is surveyors?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
If I go to new build, so this is a different postcode. Let me do this one really quickly. Let's see, 200, just to open this up. Get that. So build cost. So build cost in this postcode, if I get the build cost, is 2,680. Yeah, so that's for mid-tier property. So it's clever enough to get the right build cost for your area. Now, I can obviously share with you the sources of all of this information. And there's been a request actually for that. So we'll be building a page where we show the sources of all our information.
Okay.
Yeah. So again,
and would that include the age as well? I see how old typically data is. So yeah, what's the delay in the data getting to your system?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So in terms of like, as you know, sold prices tend to be old, at least 3 months or up to 3 months. So that nothing we can do about, because that's from land registry. But in terms of getting a feel for what's happening in the market, we look at the sale prices, and the sale prices are current sale prices in the area. There's also this bit here where you can see the current sale prices and what we've gotten that average from. So this is for WD18, and these are current sale prices and the types of properties and how much they're on sale for, and where they are in the area. You can also see like trends, growth trends here. So that's what's been happening since 2015 to now.
And this would be direct from land registry.
Yes.
Really good. Yeah, just so powerful. And the fact that people can sign up and give it and drive it and drive this vehicle. They can have 5 trips in your vehicle, can't they? And
that's right.
So that's a really lovely offer. Thank you very much. So I know you talked about people who are time poor, being fantastic, but I think it's just so powerful for even people who do have the time, because you can just do so much more research, so much more analysis in the same amount of time. And I liked your display at the end where you had multiple machines running sequentially rather than just in series, one at a time, as it were. So that was really good. The mega stack I really like, and I really like the color coding. I think that works really beautifully. And what else did I have? Auctions. I was thinking about auctions and how the tool can help with auction bidding as well.
Yeah. So here's a story. A person I know went to auction. He went to purchase a property. He didn't get the property he wanted to buy. So he thought it would be a good idea to buy another property. And whilst he was in the auction, I don't advocate this at all, please. You need to have the legal pack read, and a solicitor must tell you that it's okay for you to go ahead. But in this man's case, he logged onto Valat, he did an appraisal, he saw the numbers, and he thought, well, the numbers stack, so I'm going to buy. So he purchased another property at that auction. He phoned me, and I wasn't pleased with him because I told him this is just too risky. But we worked together in the end, and he completed that deal. He's refinanced it now. He's gotten his money out, and he's on to the next one. And we've agreed he's not going to do that again. Now, to answer your question, for auctions, this will tell you what the GDV is likely to be for whatever strategy you're likely to apply to the property. Now, when it does this residual calculation at the end and it tells you how much to offer, that offer amount is what you're not to exceed in auction. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. So just for those maybe new to the call, so GDV's gross development value, and that would be the value of the property or development at the end of doing your piece of work. And what you're saying is that Valat will, everything you've talked about actually, in fact, is customizable. So although you say put 30% in for developers' profit, people could tune that to 25. So everything you can change, can't you? So us as users can change. So what you're saying is, as you go to auction, we can tune the calculation and the formula to something that suits our figures, because we sort of all have different thresholds of profit, etc. And it will give you a figure of which you shouldn't exceed at auction. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. I'm just about to show you all the numbers. So here you can tune the duration, and as you tune this, it adjusts your finance costs. You can add any sales you think you're likely to incur. This we might be able to automate eventually. You can get your build costs and adjust your finance. And then here you can adjust your developer's profits. So default is 30%. So you can make all the changes here. You can change your HMO yields if you're going to do HMO yields. You can adjust your sales accommodation, occupancy rate. Now, one of the other things that this gives you, which I didn't show actually, is that you can, I mentioned during the presentation that, where's this? Slide another page. Yeah, so I mentioned that for commercial, it's valued by income. If there's a commercial element to the property, you can appraise a commercial here. You put in the size, let's say 40 square meters, you say how many units there are. Then generally commercial, you wouldn't have any build costs or very minimal. So I'd normally just bring this down to about 100, because with commercial, the person who's buying tends to do the work. And then you state here the rental you're likely to get. So if we say £1,000 a month, and based on your yield calculation, it will tell you what the value of that unit is, and it adds it to your GDV. So again, if you're in auction and there's a commercial aspect, you can do this as well, add a commercial aspect to it. If it's HMO you want to do, you can also do HMOs here. A number of bedrooms, let's say 4. Let's say do 10 square meters, maintain that, and then rent per month. If you click those 3 buttons, it gives you an average of what bedroom rates are in the area. So double ensuite, £741 per month on average, and double shared bath and single ensuite and single shared bath. And you can see the numbers there, and you can use these to do your appraisal. Once you've selected a price, it adds it to your GDV, and your developer's profit and the duration and all those things, you can change them. And so that you can do within seconds, really, in auction. Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's really good. I mean, there's 2 properties going to auction this week that Lisa and I were very interested in, and we didn't end up bid on either of them because of problems with the legal pack. So I absolutely agree with your point about it is a bit of a dangerous thing to do. But what was great for that gentleman at the auction was it gave him confidence in the numbers. Okay, he's taking a risk on the legal packs, but by using your tool, at least it gave him that confidence that very quickly in terms of his options. So that must have been fantastic actually for him to do. And I don't know how else he would have done that. Well, back to his spreadsheet, I suppose. But it'd have probably been bid out the room. Yeah, it'd have been on to the next lot by the time he'd have got there. But so that's really valuable. One last question, Uwa. On first impression, it's an extremely powerful tool. There's lots of things you can change and alter. How would people learn how to use it best? What sort of help is there available? So if somebody tomorrow morning sits down and says, "Well, I want to go onto Valat," what sort of help is there for them to praise it and make sure it's done properly?
Yeah, very good question. Very, very good question. I love your questions, Chris. So in terms of help, there's a chat widget on the site. So if you're using it and you're struggling with anything, you just post a message on there. You are also able to request a demo through the chat, and we'll get together and arrange a session where we can go through the different options in depth.
So if somebody had a I don't know, a 3-bed house in Watford they were thinking of buying, they could use actually a real example and use that on the demo and actually do it for real.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
I think that'd be fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of people will use that. So I won't have any more tricky questions, Uwa. I will just open it up just to see if anyone's got any last questions before I talk before I move on. Any final questions for Uwa?
Hi, Uwa.
Hello.
Hey, that's great. Thanks for the demo. I just wondered how much it is after the trial. You can appraise up to 5 properties, can you?
Yes, you can. You can appraise up to 5 properties, and you can do an unlimited number of appraisals for each property. If you exceed the 5th property, the 6th ones then cost you £5 a property to do the same.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So it's not on a monthly subscription type basis; it's per property after that.
Yes, there is a subscription one, but it's up to you if you want to do it. The prices are pretty much the same.
All right, perfect. Thanks for that.
No problems.
That's a good question, Richard, actually. So
very good question. Thanks, Richard. Really appreciate it.
Any other?
I've got here some of the other questions I don't think I've addressed from you, Chris. So are you able to add into the analysis potential extension calculations? Yes, you are. Where we put in the size of the deal, if you just appended or added the extra bit, your extension, then it will calculate that whole block for you. And yes, it's done by square foot, price per square foot in terms of comparables. And in terms of the condition of the property, again, that's where you'd have to adjust your profit margins based on the condition, or you change the build cost based on the condition. It doesn't automatically do that for you at the moment. We don't have that functionality yet, but that's what you'd have to do.
So if it's a property in poor condition, or I don't know, say had damp or whatever, damp issues, then you would load the build cost. Well, but you could also, we haven't really talked about this actually, but what about contingency? You could just sort of up the contingency as well, presumably. I didn't see that in actual fact, but I assume there is a contingency.
Yeah, yes, indeed, there is. There is, 5% at minimum.
Yeah. So again, that's an example for me of you assume, you've built a figure in. Some people might want a larger contingency. They might want to work at 10% or whatever, and that's up to that individual, or to then change that figure. So it is completely customizable. Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good. That's really good. Was that the last of the questions, Uwa?
Yeah, so yeah, that was the last of the questions you've asked. We've touched on the how to factor in prices in a falling market. Where I was saying you compare the sold prices and the for sale price and adjust your figure or your GDV based on whichever is lower. That's what we do. So that's how you factor in a falling market.
Right, brilliant. Thank you very much. And as a final item, are you going to cover vehicle, or is it a competition? Is there a prize for getting to vehicle? Because I was thinking it was an acronym, but I couldn't work that one out as I went through.
Okay, it's not an acronym, so it wasn't that it's not that deep. But I'm interested to see if anyone can sort of guess what the vehicle is. And thanks for reminding me, Chris. Yeah. Okay.
I've got a guess, but I was going to let somebody else have a guess. Actually, that was all. I'm sure somebody can have a guess.
No, it's you.
That was me. Lisa saying it's got to be me, but
yeah.
Should I have a go?
Yes, go for it.
Well, the only thing I could think of is some sort of bit. So this is a tool that sort of takes you sort of from start to end. So the start would be you find a sort of property, and you use this tool or this vehicle to have multiple sort of calculations or multiple exits in sort of property speak, I suppose, to then come up with the end, which is the final sort of answer or the best or best potential exit. That's the best I can come up with, though, I'm afraid.
That's very good, and it's very, very close.
Oh, right.
Very close. So the vehicle, believe it or not, is not the app. It's data. So data mindset, focus on the data. Your data would always get you to your destination.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gone quiet.
I sort of get where you're coming from. Yeah. So data, yeah. It's making sure it's the right data to be. So for me, it's the right data. It's current. It's reliable. Because data can also cause you loads of problems as well. But yeah. Okay, I'll try harder next time.
No, you did well. Thanks for all the questions, guys. Really appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity.
That was really super. I really appreciate that, and that people have got a route to you when they use me. For the questions they've got, so that they can make the most out of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Uwa.
Okay. Thank you. I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah, if you could stop sharing, that would be fantastic. So I'll just go on to my, here we go. So hopefully, right, let me see if, hopefully I can share now. It says, hold on a second. That was really amazing, absolutely amazing.
Stop waffling.
Sorry, Lisa says I'm waffling. Okay, right. So let me just have a look here. So so I did a bit of housekeeping. So in terms of what we've done tonight, as always, we had a really fantastic lending update from Sam. As always, Sam, month in, month out, fantastic information there. Uwa's told us about his well, I call it the deal analysis, but it's so much more than that, really. So so that was really good, Uwa. So thank you very much for that. In terms of connecting with us, we've got our Facebook group and all the presentations we've had on our YouTube channel, our nice new shiny YouTube channel. I'm just going to talk about what's happening next month. So
Daniel's free.
So I was going to give Danielle a very short, sort of couple of minutes introduction. So many of you might know Danielle. So Danielle's come along to our meetings several times. She's an expert in capital allowance, so it's the person it's my go-to person for capital allowance, and capital allowances are extremely powerful in property investing. In fact, you mentioned capital allowances a couple of times during your seminar. So Danielle, would you just like to come off mute and tell everybody what you're going to be talking about next month?
Yeah, so I'll be quick, but essentially, yeah, I'm a specialist in capital allowances, which is tax relief on commercial property investments. So for instance, one of the examples Sam gave earlier on, where you've got a bit of retail to the ground floor of a property or something like that. And what I intend to do is focus on where mainly acquisitions, where you're acquiring a property that's a commercial property, because that's where there's the real hidden tax relief that's often overlooked. Most people are aware of when you're spending money on commercial property, you can get additional tax relief. And I intend to focus a little bit on serviced accommodation, because especially at the moment, there's it's obviously a growing area, and I'm not sure that everybody that has got investments in serviced accommodation is maximising this relief. So yeah, I'll run through some examples, try and keep it simple.
Yeah, we appreciate keeping it simple, Danielle. So thank you very much. Yeah, so service accommodation, many people doing service accommodation, and I've used capital allowances myself actually on service accommodation, and you can save thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, depending on the size of the scheme. So great tool, so or strategy. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. Thank you, Danielle. Just lastly, say my thanks again. Fantastic presentations from Sam and from Uwa, and I just wish you all a pleasant evening, and I'll see you all again next month on the 5th of November. So good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks.
Cheers. Good night.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.